Hey everybody, I'm Andy.
And I'm John. We're the hosts of Zombie Strains, the podcast where we watch all of the zombie movies in chronological order.
It has been a wild ride so far, discovering where and when all our favorite zombie tropes originated. Things like the first cannibal zombies,
Bowery at Midnight, 1942.
the first rage zombie,
Teenage Zombies, 1959.
and the first homicidal zombie.
Dr. Blood's Coffin, 1961.
If you love zombie films as much as we do, join us on Zombie Strains.
Find Zombie Strains on your podcast app of choice.
Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers. How are you all?
Yes,
I
hope
always
you
ask
are
that
having-
because I expect them to answer back. I don't know why.
Oh, they do. I can hear them. They're like,
Oh.
"We're doing great, Erica and Mark. We just saw Bigfoot." That's
Yeah.
that's what I feel like they say all the time.
Yeah. I have a new theory on Bigfoot, but it's gonna have to wait for another episode. So little small tease there, but I've done some deep diving, I've done some number crunching, and man, have I got some stuff to talk about. So
Well, I
but I'm
can't
not
wait for
done yet.
that.
Not ready yet. Working on it.
Okay. Well, I want to include a little bit of breaking news.
What? Breaking news?
So I'm sure you've seen this link, but there apparently is a gentleman saying he's from 6,000 years in the future.
I
And
have not seen this.
oh my goodness, I get to surprise Mark.
You surprised me. What?
Yeah, so we'll throw the link in the show notes, but this gentleman says that he is from 6,000 years in the future where AI has taken over everything. It's very Terminator-esque. And he has pictures, and if we don't change what we're doing, that's where we're going to end up.
Wow. I wonder if AI made those pictures. Excuse me.
Possibly. Oh, look. Allergies. You got to love allergies.
I love allergies this time of year. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Now I have breaking news.
What?
After our 250th episode, we got a few more late arrivals from tributes. If you listen to the last one, we had quite a few from Shannon LeGros and Cryptos the Corn, and of course Destiny. We loved all of those. Well, we got another one. So here it comes, Erica. You ready?
Probably not, because when you do this, it surprises me very much like our books, and I don't like it. Go for it.
Hey, gang, I just wanted to swing by and congratulate you on 250 episodes. That is insane. What an accomplishment. I doubt I'll ever see that. I think I'm at like 70 right now, and I can't imagine going to 250, but you guys have hung around and done the work, entertained us all, and I really mean that. You're one of my favorite shows. You're some of my favorite people. But while I'm congratulating you on 250 episodes, I'm going to squash something today, and it's probably going to hurt Erica's feelings, but that's fine because it needs to happen. As you move forward from the 250 episodes, you can finally let go this blasphemous claim that Edward or any of the Twilight vampires are the most strongest vampires in the universe. And that's not even close to being true. I've held this one, so I could do it at the right moment, and now is the right moment. But Alucard from Hellsing Ultimate, sunlight doesn't even affect him. It's more like a minor convenience. To kill this vampire, you have to kill every single soul inside him, which he kind of uses for extra lives in Mario. So I got you there. You can't one-up me on that one. I hate to bring it to an end, but it's just good for everybody now that you're moving forward from 250 episodes that you just forget this nonsense that Erica believes, because Edward and the Twilight vampires, while pretty and sparkly, will never, ever be the strongest vampires in the universe. Love y'all. Have a good one.
Stacy, one, I've never seen this particular information, so you have to provide it because, as I've said for literally years now, without showing it to me where I can read or watch it, I do not believe it. I believe he just made that up. Plus, I know that he's a secret fan. I've seen him with signed copies. I don't believe it. I do believe he'll get to 250 episodes, though, because he's amazing and his show is amazing, very much like Shannon LeGros and everybody we support. I know that there's another one that came in that I'm not sure we got, so I have to check on it from J. Michael Roddy
Yeah.
from
I didn't
Haunter's
get
Tale.
I didn't get the full file. I got the transcript of it, so I've reached out to him to get the full file again. So, but yeah,
We've had so many friends, Stacy. First of all, I'm personally offended that you called me out on my 250th episode, since I sent so much love to you throughout the time on our bond over our special sparkly vampires. I was going to save this, and I might, about a certain little tattoo that I know that you got, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to hold
oh,
it. In regards, I absolutely want to make sure that everybody understands how on the same page we are, and you're just trying to show for the public that you're not a fan, which is fine. Fine.
no, I agree with Stacy on that. I had completely forgotten about Alucard from Helsing, and I will send you. We'll put the link in the show note to where you can watch Helsing, and we'll
Fine.
get to it.
We'll see. We'll
We'll get-
see.
But I've also got. I got sent a copy. I'm being sent a copy of the second Bureau 13 book, so I'm going to send that to you too. So that way you've got your homework cut out for you.
Oh, always, always. And that's a lot of fun. I do have to do a call out to my latest favorite book series. I'm waiting on book 8 now because me and the husband went through them, which is Dungeon Crawler Carl. So
yeah.
if you like any of the gaming stuff that we ever talk about and stuff, I feel like this is a true rendition of what I feel like
We're
most
good.
of my games go like. So very
I've
fun,
been,
very humorous.
I've been rereading Jason K. Pargin's John Dies at the End series, which is if you want to know what my life is like, read those books. That's my life there. So,
I love that.
yeah, if you get strange messages, you get strange phone calls from your friends from the future, and other things. It's that just read them, you'll love them, and they got that wacky humor that I love dearly. So, all right, we've been begged to talk about um, some important stuff that's been going on in the world. Um, and I got an email the other day that just floored me, Erica.
Okay.
So it was about a week ago. I got an envelope. I got an actual letter with no return address. Um, it was postmarked from a town in New Mexico, and I had to look it up because it's not on any map I could find. And inside was a USB drive. And I'm like, okay, I know better. I'm not doing this. I know my Wi-Fi security and all this. This is a bad thing. But then I got an email who told me from the gentleman who told me that he had sent it to me. And I trust this man a lot, but he has asked to remain anonymous because he is still active in several organizations that involve alphabet letters.
Oh,
So I may be already said too much, but on the USB drive was this photograph right off the bat of 9 men standing in front of the V2 rocket in the New Mexico desert, dated 1946. And on the back of the envelope, he had written in pencil, "It never ended." And now I was like, I get conspiracy stuff all the time. I had almost turned away until that email came up, right? But I started matching names and dates and patterns. And of course, immediately Operation Paperclip came up. And I'm like, okay. And then the Soviets had their own project that was probably not talked about nearly as much. But then, that current news story about scientists and military just disappearing or
Yeah.
dying suddenly. So I'm like, wait a minute, this guy may be onto something. So I had already had some suspicions, but man, we're going to dive into the historical stuff and then we'll get into how it ties into the new stuff in a bit. But are you ready for this?
I don't even know if I'm ready, and I feel like after our last listener tales where certain people told us to stop talking about this, and, like, I feel like what you said was, "Screw you, I'm gonna do the exact opposite."
Yeah.
So, um, well, it was very nice being a part of 250 plus
Yeah.
episodes with you.
Yeah.
Um, I'm terrified. What is Operation Paperclip?
Well, all right. We've got to go back to the ruined laboratories of the Third Reich. Okay. And,
Okay.
and it's just, this is, oh my gosh, I just have too much time on my hands. So yeah, this is, all right. Operation Paperclip and was spring of 1945.
Okay.
War is ending. Third Reich has collapsed into basically nothing but ash from Berlin on.
Okay.
It was the most technologically advanced war machine in history, and it was in pieces. So the machines were not the real prize that the military was trying to get. They weren't trying to get the V2s. They weren't trying to get, the secret weapons of the Luftwaffe and all that. What they really wanted was the minds that built them, right?
I got it. So they weren't trying to steal the technology, they were trying to steal the people that built the technology so that they could
Right.
then I mean, not that I'm for kidnapping people or imprisoning,
Yeah.
words this early in the morning, but that is a much smarter, way to approach things than just the technology, because if you wanna improve upon it, you need to change it, I don't know, fix it. You can't do that if you only have it and not the people that built it.
Right. Exactly. So they're what they did was basically the war was, smoke everywhere. And they decided we don't really need tanks. We don't need Jeeps. We need a very flexible moral compass. That's what they got because the US knew exactly what it was looking for. So 1944, even before D-Day, intelligence compiled a blacklist of key German scientists and engineers, and they were going to be captured or interrogated or both, and both if they could. And it was called scientifically the list of German and Austrian scientists. No code name. It's pretty much
Wow, okay.
basic as it
That
was.
is if you were discussing it with somebody, that's like a mouthful, though. You
Yeah,
couldn't, like, reference it easily, like Operation Blueberry.
yeah.
Yeah, because okay, poorly
So
named, but
anyway,
continue on.
they were basically doing a snatch and grab, right? So General Eisenhower issued orders to seize anything of scientific value. But
Okay,
he started realizing, because the German science, rocket science was power. I mean, that was undeniable. The V2 missiles were raining down on London. And the calculus required for those was beyond a lot of people. So it quickly became these guys weren't going to be interrogation subjects. These guys were going to be assets that needed to be claimed. So
okay.
enter Werner von Braun. Okay, you know that
That
name?
is a name.
You don't know Werner von Braun? Okay, he was the guy, the mastermind behind the V2 rocket program,
Wow,
and he also knew the game that was coming. So this guy was young, is handsome, very aristocratic, and he had this
okay.
great technical mind. And so he, as the Soviets were coming in from the east, he picked up his files, his key personnel, and drove west. He had a convoy of all his stuff, and he was going to surrender to the Americans. And he told some of his people, the nearer we get to the American lines, the better it is for us.
Oh, wow.
Well, now he had his right-hand man, General Walter Dornenberger, and he had hundreds of others. And when they got close to the Bavarian Alps, they were held in a holding camp, and it was called Operation Overcast. There you go. There's your first big spooky
I
name.
like it. I like it.
But there was a big problem, a very big problem. These men were Nazis, and not just paper pushing members of the party. Von Braun had been an SS Stubenführer. His name appeared in photographs with Heinrich Himmler, Arthur Rudolph, and as the production director of the V2, he also oversaw the Mittelwerk underground factory where they used slave laborers from the Dora Mittelbau concentration camp, and many were just worked to death building the rockets. Thousands.
I do not love any part of that history.
No.
That's what I'm gonna say. I do not love any part of that history, and I know we're not doing a deep dive on that particular war, but it was definitely not just combat that was occurring that was horrific, so
Nope. And thousands were dying in
yeah.
horrific conditions to build these weapons, right? So,
Mhm. And just to kill them.
yep,
So, yeah. No,
yep,
not a fan of this time travel in the Wayback Machine.
yeah. Sorry. But we
That's
got to
okay.
do what we got to do.
Yeah,
So,
I understand. So he caravans thinking, it's a great idea.
yeah.
Go
So,
find the US.
he's basically his expertise in rocket mass production was deemed too valuable to lose. So the U.S. military and the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, which would later become FBI, NSA, stuff like that, they broke it up, CIA. They performed this massive act of sanitization, right? They scrubbed his dossiers. They tried to take his fingerprints off the worst offenses, right? So swastikas were airbrushed from his biographies. Security reports were rewritten to downplay party membership, but just to highlight his technical genius. This was a new name, and it was called Operation Paperclip. And the name became because of all the paperclips attached to all the falsified personnel files of all the scientists they were grabbing.
Wow.
And von Braun was probably the most famous, but between 1945 and 1959, more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians were brought to the United States under that program. And
Wow.
that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And not just rocket men. We got chemists who'd worked on nerve agents like Tabin and sarin gas. It brought in Kurt Blom, who was the architect of Nazi biological weapons research. He had experimented with plague-infected fleas.
I don't love that. Yeah.
They brought aircraft designers like Alexander Lipsitch. He had helped shape the Me-163 rocket fighter, which blew away jets even at the time. It was the early.
Wow.
It brought specialists in guided missiles, submarine acoustics, infrared technology, space medicine. It just pioneers in all this stuff. And yeah, a lot of it, sadly, was used on concentration camp inmates when they were testing them. So back in
Oh, I have no doubt, like, how they got to this science, whether the science was great,
yeah,
was done with the blood of others, which is not great.
no, not at
No.
all. So 1946 War Department memo stated the interests of national security required that the continued temporary custody and interrogation of certain German scientists and technicians to be accomplished. Well, temporary kind of became permanent. These men were settled in America with their families. They were given homes, Huntsville, Alabama, El Paso, Texas. They were now, right now we'd had this new god of national security, and these guys were, buried in its top secret files. So nobody could do much about it.
Wow.
So, all right. So what did the Soviets do while von Braun was being measured for his American suit? They went racing to scoop up whatever was left, right? Their version of Paperclip was much more brutal, far more direct, because that's the way they worked. This is under Stalin. And this was pretty much overlooked in a lot of Western accounts. They didn't have paperclips. Let's just put it that way. So they had managed to secure the manufacturing sites, but most of the big brains had fled, right? So they took over the V2 production lines at Middlework, and they found them mostly stripped of parts. What they called was mostly like mid-level technicians, a few engineers, and a couple important scientists who had been too slow to leave. And they have them immediately reassemble the V2s. But
Yikes.
Stalin wanted way more, right? So he, October 22nd, 1946, this is under a plan personally approved by Stalin. The NKVD, which I'm not going to even try to pronounce their real name, the Red Army troops went door to door in the Soviet occupation zone of East Germany. And this is Operation Osokaiven, which is named after one of the Soviet military organizations. Basically, 2,200 German specialists were literally rounded up, along with 3,800 family members. They were loaded on trains at gunpoint, and they were shipped east into the Soviet Union. Now, they weren't sent to like prison camps per se, but the Soviets called them special settlements. That's
Yikes.
terrifying. Okay. So
It is, but are these the people that were creating problems? Because this
yeah,
is my irony on this, but
we're going
anyway, it's still not good.
from Hitler to Stalin. You're going from
Yeah,
out of the frying pan. And
not
so
good at all.
one of the most guys was von Braun's deputy, Gratup. He'd been cooperating with the Soviets on missile guidance, but that didn't spare him from this. In the October sweep, he and his wife were rousted and put on a train to Moscow. From there, they were relocated to Gorodomalia Island. It's in Lake Seliger. This is remote, forested, and it became the center for all the German rockets.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was surrounded by guards, surrounded by barbed wire, watchtowers, and the Germans were told they'd be there for about 5 years. So, but it wouldn't be until the late 1950s that they were let out of there. So now, like in the US, when paperclip scientists were gradually reintegrated into corporate and academic life, the Soviet Germans were just completely separate, parallel workforce. They all worked under Sergei Korolev,
Oh,
and
wow.
he was this legendary Soviet rocket designer. And he was going to improve the V2. He was making the R1 and the R2. And they basically had these German scientists as advisors, help them. But they basically were just taking their knowledge and giving it to Soviet engineers.
I
So
don't love that.
now, by the 1950s, the scientific community on Golda it was basically, they were drained, man. You had isolation, desperation, depression. And in many cases, some of the scientists suffered accidents, may not have been entirely accidents. And those who tried to escape were dealt with.
I don't like any of this at all.
All right. So both superpowers just, knew that intellectual capital was much more better than having a bomb, right? So
Yeah,
turn theoretical physics into intercontinental ballistic missiles. Boom. Biochemistry into nerve gas. Yeah, that's way more better than oil fields or gold reserves.
I agree.
So they built these institutionalized pipelines for acquiring, protecting, and hiding capital. And the public said,
Wow.
okay, after the war, they closed, right? So Werner von
No.
Braun in the 1950s, Paperclip, he was the triumphant face of Paperclip because he became a Walt Disney star. He was selling America on space exploration, and he just had that suit and tie, and he turned to rocket. He talked about the rockets. It's just my terrible German accent there.
Yes.
Then the Soviets launched Sputnik and then put Gagarin in orbit, and that's based on the knowledge they got from these captured German scientists. So the
Wow.
Cold War just was continuing it. So, yeah, that was the start.
It's terrifying, and I think people do not understand that after these kinds of incidents occur, or what we are considering after whatever the end date is, it never stops. It's kind of like, the idea that we pulled our troops out of the Middle East when those wars were over. I know we are at war with Iran right now, but there were troops already still there. Like, we didn't, leave. That's not how that works. The same is true with Vietnam and other places. So, anyway, this is all just terrifying to me. This is terrifying, but continue.
All right. Well, let's continue a little more of this in just a minute after the break.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The Haunting Is Over, with international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
Greetings, travelers. Now available on Audible and other audiobook platforms, Eerie, Appalachia. Join us, won't you, as we discuss creatures like the Popelick Monster, the White Fangs, the Snallygaster, the Wampus Cat, the Lizard Man of Skateboard Swamp, Bunny Man Bridge, and the Ohio Grassman. All these creatures and more await you if you dare listen to Eerie, Appalachia. Presented by Mark Muncy, History Press, and Four Horsemen Publishing. Okay.
Okay, we're back. We're back.
Yep.
I had some of my haunted, I actually have raspberry nectar water in my haunted Buc-ee's cup. So I'm
Nice.
super excited about that. Love this cup because I can see the top in the dark. Best feature ever from this. So
Always nice. We have a lot of
Buc-ee's,
fresh
you should sponsor us. What do you
Okay.
think?
Yeah, Buc-ee's, come on. Yeah, no, I have we had fresh strawberries in town, so I made some strawberry cocktail, basically. Just strawberry juice and some lemon juice and a little bit of tea. There we go. It's my new Arnold Palmer.
I was gonna say, you said the word cocktail as if there was alcohol, and I'm like, what?
No, it's like I made strawberry moonshine once, and my dad was like, "Where's the moonshine?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just the type. I made it the same way, just didn't go through the extra step." He's like, "Well, this is garbage." So, okay. So we've been talking about this pipeline of missing scientists, right? And
Mhm.
becoming American scientists. Well, that pipeline didn't go away. It just went deeper. Okay.
Wow.
United States made a network of classified laboratories and testing ranges where the paperclip scientists and their new American proteges could work without too many questions. This is where we get White Sands, New Mexico, the Dugway Proving Ground, the Naval Ordnance Test Station at China Lake, and a lot of ultra black programs run under the National Reconnaissance Office and the CIA's Directorate of Science and Technology. Now, the Soviet scientists protected their closed city concept, right? They had entire municipalities not shown on maps, and they were ringed by restricted zones. and the intellectual elite lived there and worked in secrecy. These are cities like Erasmus 16 and Krasnyak 26, Chablasnik 70. I love this, all the little numbers after them. And they are the ones who built the Soviets' nuclear and bioweapons arsenals. And
Wow.
yeah, so this is now bureaucratic architecture at this point. So now hold in your mind here that off grid facilities, brilliant people are relocated, given new identities, separated from their past lives, put to work with or without their full consent. All right, just keep that picture. We're going to come back to this.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right. All right. So the next transformation of this pipeline is like in the 70s and 80s. So after the moral questions around Paperclip started leaking out because journalists and Holocaust survivors started recognizing some of these names, the and the so the importation of former Nazis is now radioactive. We can't do this anymore. So the system changed a little bit. So instead of hunting war criminals, the intelligence community began focusing on defectors and immigrants,
Oh,
and just, hey, let's, and then also homegrown talent that could be kind of sheep dipped into the black projects. So
wow.
it was no longer relocating enemy scientists. It was just making your own scientists disappear so they could hide in the machinery. So now certain
Wow.
brilliant physicists, computer scientists just vanish from the conference circuit, and they disappear from their families. And then they're given usually the quote government work, right? That's usually
Wow.
true because they're working on weapons and intelligence and cryptography and computer work that is way beyond what we think. But their existence growth, their phone numbers were disconnected, and modern stuff, their social media disappears, and
Yeah.
paper trails just become dead. They become non-persons. Um, and is the government right in the name of security? Well, I think, yeah, if you're doing something you don't want anybody to know about, that's what you should
I
do.
get that, but I would like it to be voluntary and not mandatory.
Right.
That's the problem. Like, I
That's
mean,
yeah.
not that I agree with covering up the war atrocities from those German scientists, but they kind of volunteered as tribute and came over on their own, right?
Mhm.
When you go and people just start disappearing that maybe don't want to be disappearing, that's a problem.
Yeah. So this analyst who sent me all this said, you have to understand the U.S. intelligence community never threw away the paperclip playbook. They have filed it under continuity of intellectual assets. So he said, after 9/11, we saw how fast technological surprise can happen. So there was a quiet renaissance of the idea that the state has a fiduciary duty to secure critical human capital long before it falls into adversarial hands.
I don't love any of how that's worded.
And he started seeing words like scientist extraction in mission profiles. And, these were no longer historical footnotes. These are
Wow.
stuff. And there are some names that have been bandied about, like Projects Longsight, Projects Axiom. And the Russians do have their own equivalent, the successor to Ozaskayam. They have one called Project Zaslan, which would be Project Barrier. And according to reports, they've been very, very busy themselves. So,
Well, I have no doubt. I mean, I think it's important that we keep bridging and we keep bridging new technology. I mean, and also find ways to improve life and improve our use of the planet. I know that this all just sounds related to weaponry or protection and things like that, but it's just interesting to me because I really wish that much effort was put on, I don't know, cleaning up the ocean or ways to recycle things better, but I'll let that go.
yeah. And now the Soviets, again, they've been doing the same thing. They have the seventh directorate of the KGB, and FSB's Center for Information Protection, that those never really dissolved. They became brain relocations. Soviets were masters at making people disappear into closed cities, and they would poach talent from Eastern Bloc countries, Cuba, and they even got some Indian people by pretending there were scholarships. And
Oh my goodness.
yeah, um, so it privatized after the collapse of the Soviet Union, though. So state security holdovers and the Kremlin itself formed. There was an old organization called Zato, but they basically gave them an infrastructure for next gen weapons and psychological research. They don't have prying eyes anymore. Uh,
No.
so yeah, they acted under a classified degree, right? So they were apparently it was resurrected, but we don't
I don't
know.
love that.
Yeah, basically a modern Project Barrier. And we talked to a couple defectors over the years, and one guy said it was 1946 all over again. He said they called it the intellectual special operation. And they find a scientist with breakthrough potential, often with a vulnerability, like, usually he's debt, a sick child, a secret lover, or a paper trail that says, he might be sending some information to the US or an adversary. And then he became state property and he'd be suddenly housed in comfortable isolation. But
Wow.
yeah, so yeah, one Ukrainian hypersonic chemist reported dead in a bombing in Kiev. His mother attended his funeral with a closed casket, but he was alive and working in a compound east of the Urias, and he was designing a fuel air mixture for the next generation cruise missile. He'd been, quote, recruited after a staged threat from Ukrainian ultranationalists. So his disappearance was actually a cover to shield him and to deny his expertise to the West. So they think he's a martyr.
Wow.
So that's just a leaked story. So no proof on that one, but if that's happening, pretty crazy.
Very
So
crazy.
yeah, now the guy Colorado, I know a guy who's a former private aerospace contractor and he has
Mhm.
close ties with intelligence and stuff like that. And he says it's now a subcontractor run system that avoids direct government fingerprints. And so they use cutout operations, the CIA, DOD, and some are linked to big defense giants, but they offer venture capital funds. Say, come on in, give you an offer you can't refuse. And if they reject the soft recruitment, it could be a smear campaign and legal trouble or a threat to family members. And then reportedly, in some cases, the scientist's death is faked and they are relocated to a facility somewhere in the Southwest or offshore island with U.S. jurisdiction, something like that.
I don't love any of this.
Yeah. So he's calling it codename Second Harvest, which is pretty scary.
It's
Right?
terrifying.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying for the families. Is that what is happening now?
I think that's what we're getting to. Yes, because
Okay.
I've got
Okay.
one specific case that I was able to corroborate from all this, which is one I don't think anybody's talked about yet. This is a Moroccan French mathematician. He was working on post-quantum cryptographic lattices. Talk about that. I can't even figure out what that means.
I was like, that sounds very Sheldon Cooper from
Uh,
Big Bang. I don't
yeah.
know what that means.
Exactly. He was on sabbatical from MIT in 2023, and his Parisian family was told that the FBI was investigating his disappearance, and then it was silence. His apartment in Cambridge was meticulously cleaned as though he'd never even lived there. His university email account was deactivated 3 hours before he was last seen, before any missing persons report was filed. This is prior knowledge, right? That's not any sort
Yeah.
of
No, there's no way that
protocol.
happened.
Yeah. And his work could break encryption systems that would secure a lot of stuff, including the nuclear command and control communications. All right.
Not good. Not good.
All right. So I'm concerned that this might be something serious. All right, so let's go into the news, right? We have James Comey says if the reports are accurate, these deaths and disappearances may represent a grave threat to the United States national security and to the U.S. personnel with access to scientific secrets. And then we had our current president say, I just left a meeting on that subject. So pretty serious stuff. Hopefully coincidence, but some of them were very important people. So
Yeah, there's a
that
point where coincidence doesn't work anymore as
Yeah.
a plausible thing. I mean, but the way that makes that sound is that we don't have them, that somebody else has them.
that's what I'm concerned about, right? Or it's a big double bluff. All right, we don't it could be anybody. Oh my gosh, and or it's just coincidence. That's a lot of people are saying it's just coincidence. So, but earlier this year, we had a list of 11 names. We now think it's 12 or even 13 that America's brightest minds in nuclear, aerospace engineering, and some classified defense projects. Over the last 4 years, they've either vanished or died under circumstances that are just really weird and a lot of
Wow.
violent deaths. Now, the FBI is spearheading this multi-agency investigation. The White House wants answers, publicly. The question hanging over is simple: what is this? Just tragic, unrelated coincidences, or are we witnessing a new Operation Paperclip, or somebody just eliminating a threat of some sort? So
It seems, I mean, I don't even love saying this out loud, but it seems like that would be a tremendous waste of resources to just get rid of them.
that's why I think it's tied to Paperclip. I think it's
Wow.
because there's two major hotspots in this. There's the nuclear corridor, which is in New Mexico. It's right around Albuquerque and Los Alamos National Laboratory, which is the birthplace of the atomic bomb, ground zero for most of our defense. And then the second is kind of the aerospace cluster, and that's in Southern California. And that's pretty much around NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL, and Caltech. That's where most of this is going on. And they're right there. The Air Force Research Laboratory, the Kansas City National Security Campus. There's some deep space outposts out there. And this is, the FBI is leading an effort to find the connections. And they're even working with the Department of Energy and the DoD. So
Wow.
now let's go back to one of the early ones, right? The first here.
Yeah.
So timeline begins 2023. Man named Michael David Hicks. He's a research scientist at JPL. And he'd been there for 25 years. He studied comets and asteroids. And he worked on the DART project where we crashed that spaceship into the asteroid to see if,
Yeah.
and on July 30th, 2023, he died at his home in Sunland, California. He's 59 years old. Cause of death never publicly released. It could be,
Well, come on, do better than that. Like,
yeah, could be
you're gonna
anything.
fake a death, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, that could be overdose. That could be the family just not wanting it out there. It could be a lot of things. A year later, for the July 24th, July 2024, another JPL scientist died in Los Angeles. Now, his name is Frank Mywald. He was a 61-year-old space research expert, and he had spent decades at JPL working on advanced space instrumentation and planetary detection systems. And he was basically trying to find life on worlds like Europa and Enceladus and, the moons of Jupiter. Now, his didn't draw much initial scrutiny either, but again, the cause of death not disclosed and no autopsy ever conducted.
Well, because there's probably not a body, but continue on.
All right, two scientists now dead within a year of each other. No one knows why. So it just kind of ended. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it stopped there.
Yeah, that's
All right.
very true.
Now we start getting the missing people. All right. So spring and summer of 2025, this is where it changes. All right. These people don't just die at home. These people are vanished. So May 4th, 2025, Anthony Chavez, he's a 79-year-old former employee of Los Angeles National Laboratory. He went missing while he went out walking. No phone, no wallet on him, and there have been no confirmed sightings ever since.
I don't love that.
Vanished. June 22nd, 2025. This is the one that everybody's talking about. Monica Jacinto Reza, a 60-year-old materials specialist, scientist. She disappears during a hike near Mount Waterman in the Angeles National Forest. She is at the top of her field. She is the director of JPL's materials processing group, and she was the co-inventor of a nickel-based superalloy that is being used in our next-gen rocket engines, so we don't have to rely on foreign propulsion systems anymore.
Wow.
So she was hiking with a group and just vanished within yards of others on the trail. We're talking
See,
less
that
than
doesn't
30
make
yards.
sense. They would have found something if she was around there.
Yeah, they did an extensive search. They got helicopters, drones, K9 units, no trace.
Wow.
And what's a little more unsettling is that reports came out that she had previously worked on a government-funded rocket materials project by somebody else who we're going to talk about in just a minute.
Yikes.
All
I
right.
don't love
So
this. So
4
that's
days
3.
later, June 26th, Melissa Casillas, she's a 53-year-old administrative assistant at Los Alamos. She disappeared after leaving her residence in New Mexico. She was last seen walking along State Road 518. Her mobile devices were found at home and they had been wiped clean.
But an administrative assistant?
She was administrative assistant for somebody big at Los Alamos National Laboratory. So do you think she
Okay.
wouldn't have access to some certain things and she had clearance for certain things? All right. So now we've got a couple more missings. All right. So 2025, man, this is grim. Right? So in August, Stephen Garcia, he's a 48-year-old government contractor working at Kansas City National Security Campus, about in Albuquerque. He left his home on foot, never seen again. He was carrying a handgun, but left behind his phone and wallet.
Okay, that's weird.
Now we're in overdrive, February 2026. This is a guy whose resume reads like the plot of a spy novel, man. This is just crazy. But he's retired Major General William Neal McCaslin, 68, former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory. And he left his home in Albuquerque for a hike in the Sandia Mountains. He left behind his phone, his prescription glasses, all of his wearable devices. He was a 4-star general in a lab coat. Man, this guy oversaw projects at the Air Force Research Lab. He has been worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is famously rumored to house debris and even bodies from the Roswell crash. This guy has been running that organization that we think is the successor to Blue Book. And now a gray U.S. Air Force sweatshirt was found about 1.25 miles east of his residence, but nothing else has ever been found.
Wow. I used to live near the Sandia Mountains when I lived in New Mexico.
Oh,
Sandia,
really?
it means watermelon. That has nothing to do with this story, but it's because those mountains in the evening and stuff look pink on the top and green on the bottom like a watermelon rind. But
So,
I don't like any of this so far. So I just
yeah.
was trying to put a little levity in the middle.
Yeah, no, we need it. We need it because basically now this is where speculation starts twisting more towards us because he was kind of big in the military secrets of nuclear weapons and UFOs or UAPs. So maybe he had something to do with, knew something he shouldn't. But his wife stated specifically, it is quite unlikely that he was taken to extract very dated secrets from him. So he had retired over a decade ago, but some secrets are,
It doesn't matter how old they are.
Yep, exactly. The NDAs they have to sign working on some of these projects is 50 years, and after you quit. So you got to be over 100 to talk about some of this stuff. 120 most likely. Yeah.
Wow.
So, um, so 2026, we are now getting no longer just undisclosed death stuff. December 2025, Nuno Laurelio, she's a 47-year-old globally recognized expert in nuclear fusion and plasma physics, was fatally shot outside his home in Brookline, Massachusetts. Now, he was the director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center. He's literally working on technology that could change the world.
Wow.
And he's just shot. All right. Jason
Was he
Thomas.
though?
Yeah. Now, Jason Thomas is associate director of chemical biology at the pharmaceutical giant Novartis, and he disappeared. But then 3 months later, March 2026, his body was found in a lake in Wakefield, Massachusetts. It had been shot.
Don't love that.
Now, just weeks after General McCaslin vanished, there was a shooting in a remote part of California's Antelope Valley. Carl Grimlamar, a 67-year-old Caltech astrophysicist, was shot and killed on his front porch in Llano, California. He was described as, quote, a genius, and worked on NASA's Neowise mission, which hunt for asteroids that could threaten Earth.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Now, this is where conspiracy theories start, going, okay, wait a minute.
Oh, this is where they start?
Well, this is where they kind of, right. So this guy who they think is the killer, Freddie Snyder, he had been arrested 2 months earlier for trespassing on the guy's property with a loaded, unregistered rifle. But the case was dropped for reasons unknown.
Oh, wow.
And now, Grimlar's wife said her husband thought Snyder was an odd guy, but didn't feel threatened. But the suspect in custody kind of closes that case. But why was he released if he had the gun? It looks like a random climb, but
Yeah.
isolated
Anybody who
incident.
shows up with a gun, they're released right away. I mean, we don't want to question why they're doing that at all. No.
All
Or
right,
where they
so
got the unregistered gun. That never happens.
no. So we got to talk about the elephant in the room before we wrap up, and that is UFOs, right? UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. So we go back to the beginning of the list. Amy Eskridge. She was the 34-year-old from Alabama. Cause of death was ruled a self-inflicted gunshot wound. What was she researching? Anti-gravity technology, UFOs, and extraterrestrial life. So her case is
Interesting.
now being added to this, right? Because it's a larger pattern. It sounded like science fiction, but maybe she had some access to real stuff. Then we got Matthew James Sullivan. Now he gets left off the main list because he had a lot of paranoia and stuff. But Sullivan was a former Air Force intelligence officer. He died in 2024 at the age of 39 in what was reported as a suicide. But the detail about his death was it occurred right before he was supposed to testify in a federal whistleblower case about UFOs.
Oh my goodness.
And his
That's
official cause of death was not
that's
made
not great timing.
Yeah. And his official cause of death wasn't made public till way after the trial and stuff. So now high profile whistleblowers, we know David Garush and a couple others. And they've investigated, Luis Alonso. These guys, we know some stuff from them. But Carl Wolf was a former Air Force sergeant who claimed he saw top secret NASA photos of alien structures on the moon. He died in a horrific bike accident in early 2020. Just days earlier, Army Command Sergeant Major Robert Dean also claimed he saw evidence of dead aliens, and he passed away suddenly.
Oh, wow.
So now the official investigation is going now. We've got a lot of stuff. Is it coincidence? A lot could be, but the FBI says we're looking into this. So Department of Energy is looking into it. White House press secretary said no stone will be unturned, left unturned in this effort. And the president, of course, he says pretty serious stuff, and we'll know something in the next week and a half. But
Yeah.
timelines are timelines. So we got to pump the brakes because a lot of people say there's no connections. So people just die, strokes, heart disease, suicides, muggings, robberies. It happens. So being objective for a moment, undisclosed causes of death are suspicious, but it, maybe you want to keep it private. One person was murdered, and Massachusetts does have a severe violent crime problem. MIT
Yes.
professors are not immune from that. Uh, one guy, a prior trespassing record suspect, yeah, that looks like it could be something else. And one guy found in a lake. Now, could it be a mental crisis? Plausible. Very sad, but plausible. The missing people are the most troubling because
I
we
was
got no
gonna
body.
say, like, somebody being, a couple steps ahead of you, going around a curve and then disappearing, and no trace, no nothing, no and it's one thing like the, Julian Sands, which is still very, very sad,
Yeah.
but he went off walking by himself, got lost, I think, and then ended up dying from exposure and starvation, that sort of thing. But, absolutely not when it comes to, normal, uh those kind of things, they just don't happen like that. So how do they explain? And maybe they've lumped a bunch of them in and gone, "Oh, this is great," but there's some weirdness here.
Yeah. I mean, we'd see on the Appalachian Trail all the time hikers with medical issues and without supplies just disappear forever. It happens. And McCaslin's wife says it's not a spy thriller. She just thinks he had a medical event while he's on the trail. She's convinced. And those forests, New Mexico and Angeles National Forest, they are vast. So yeah, you could get lost out there. But we've got former FBI of Chris Swecker, 24 years of experience. He came on and he said he's seen instances where individuals with access to highly classified information become victims of kidnapping and torture for intelligence purposes. It's like, when I look at all these missing scientists in critical technology areas, what I come with is it needs to be investigated wholly. So I think
I agree because, they're
yeah,
maybe I'm gonna use the term innocently working on projects and stuff
yeah,
to, better our technology, but if they know something that's needed and they're not I mean, some people don't realize there can be a long game to getting information versus a short game, and if they wanna do the short game, you go right to the source.
yep, exactly. And now some of these cases, like I said, are probably tragic, otherwise mundane. But
Yeah,
those disappearances, like, right 30 yards from her group, that's crazy. And, so they've got a lot of strange stuff connecting them. So where does this leave us? Right now, we got a bunch of names and, military leaders who are dead or missing. We've got a government investigation in high gear. We are hungry for answers, and there is nothing but a void of information. So we'll be watching over the next few weeks, see what happens. We'll probably come back to this even though they don't want us to.
yeah.
Um, I
We're
think,
gonna get an email, so
yeah, we're gonna get some emails. We're gonna get some of that because we don't normally do this sort of stuff. But this is why I'm like, we've got there's this weird narrative going on. It's a masterpiece in disinformation.
yeah,
When a prominent researcher disappears, and it's like, beloved professor, feared dead in hiking accident. It starts conspiracies start going. Did he discover zero point energy? Was he silenced? What is the program that he's working on? So,
yeah,
yeah, it can get absurd in this stuff, but I still think it's something. There's, the Strategic Personnel Secret Committee was this fragment of a memo from 2018 that's on that little USB. And it says managing public perception of unattributable assets. And it is all blacked out. So, but there is one little bit in there that isn't. And it just says the historical lessons of Operation Paperclip demonstrate that while moral and legal constraints are significant, The ultimate metric of success is the denial of critical human capital to adversaries. That is the only part of this document that is not redacted.
Wow.
So, and that's from 2018. So that would have been right before
All this started happening.
Yeah. So, crank calls, weird stuff. I don't know. Are the men in black coming around and talking to people? We got that one email from that guy in Singapore who had the 3 well-dressed men show up 2 days after his wife went missing and she was a scientist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were international intellectual property insurance agents. And they offered him a settlement, monthly annuity for life, and a new identity for him and his child if they'd relocate to Australia. They had to just sign a non-disclosure and accept the death certificate that she was lost at sea. That was one of our listener tales. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just like, ugh, ugh. I don't love any of this at all.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, with that, patrons, I hope you still like us. Hope,
I'm sure people still like us. It's just it's interesting. It's interesting.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things we had to comment on. We had to do an episode on. I'm not making a definitive. I am insinuating that there's something more going on, but I am not making a bold accusation. I am just saying that there is
Wow.
something we need to watch, something we need to think about.
Agreed.
But then when I tie in the history, I'm like, oh, me, follow the history.
Yeah.
Stuff like this has been done before and can be done again. So, we go back to grainy black and white photos of Von Braun, but and the trains running east in October, but with little classified and approved stamps on them. There's a lot of questions of ethics here. So
I don't like that there's more questions, of course, than answers. And I have no doubt we're going to get a communication telling us to stop talking about this. So go team.
Yep. All right. Well, with that, gang, thank you so much for 251 here. And Stacy, thank you for your video at the beginning there. That was amazing. And we finally put it to rest. Erica can now, stop that.
Oh, no, it's not to us. I have not verified any of this information. Again, you can have false propaganda trying to deter from the truth. And this is a perfect moment to say that. So until I am able to see or read or prove this actually exists, I'm going to say sparkly vampires are still the strongest, Stacy. Mark, do you want to take us away before I continue?
No, yeah, please, because I'm still going with Vampire X, but you'll learn about that. So anyway, one last quote from the guy in the email. I'm going to end on with my summary here was he's like, "You are seeing the landscape. There is no exit. Maybe walk away, because otherwise the alternative is an all expenses paid tour to that landscape." So I was like,
could
okay.
have started with that, and I hope 251 is not the last episode we have.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, I don't know. We're recording this. I don't know how long it's going to take to go out, but if anything, from this hour, just know history doesn't end. It just kind of hides. That same arithmetic that turned Nazi rocketeers into American heroes and some German families into Soviet serfs may still be in your town. At a science conference or something. So when you see the next headline about a brilliant scientist who vanished without a trace, don't just shake your head and scroll on. It doesn't hurt to look for patterns and listen for those echoes of 1946, because I don't think the operation is over. I think it just changed its name. And we'll see you on the other side.